Have you ever wondered why some people seem completely unshaken in the face of rejection, criticism, or even the chaos of modern dating, while the rest of us are caught up in overthinking, anxiety, or emotional roller coasters? They move through relationships with a calm, magnetic confidence that feels almost effortless. What if I told you that this isn't just luck or genetics, it's a skill, one that was mastered thousands of years ago by the Stoics? The same principles that helped Roman emperors lead empires and philosophers endure unimaginable hardships can transform the way you show up in relationships today. Think about the last time you felt rattled by a text left unread, a disagreement that spiraled, or the fear of not being enough for someone you cared about. It's human to feel those emotions, but here's the truth. The difference between being ruled by them and rising above them comes down to one thing: practice. Stoicism isn't about suppressing feelings, it's about refining your response to them. Imagine walking into every interaction with unshakable clarity, where your confidence isn't borrowed from someone else's approval, but built from an inner strength no one can take away. That's the power of Stoic discipline, and it's what makes someone irresistibly grounded in a world full of uncertainty. This isn't just theory, it's a challenge. Over the next 25 practices, we're diving into the timeless tools that will rewire how you approach attraction, connection, and emotional resilience. These aren't pickup lines or mind games. They're the same principles that turned ordinary men into legends of composure, from Marcus Aurelius to modern leaders who thrive under pressure. You'll learn how to disarm tension with perspective, turn setbacks into fuel, and embody a presence that draws people in without desperate effort. By the end, you won't just survive the chaos of dating, you'll master it. Ready? Let's begin. Let's be clear, this isn't about changing who you are. It's about uncovering the best version of yourself, the one that doesn't falter when things get tough, the one who stays centered when emotions run high. That's the challenge, and it starts now. The first practice is all about flipping fear on its head, and it starts with something the Stoics called negative visualization. At first glance, it sounds counterintuitive. Why would you willingly dwell on the worst that could happen? But here's the twist: by confronting those fears head-on, you strip them of their power. Picture this: you're about to ask someone out, and the thought of rejection knots your stomach. Now, instead of avoiding that discomfort, you lean into it. You imagine the exact words they might say to turn you down. You sit with the sting, the awkwardness, the silence afterward. And then something remarkable happens. You realize you're still standing. The world hasn't ended. You're okay. Marcus Aurelius did this daily. In his private journals, he wrote about visualizing the loss of his reputation, his wealth, even his family. Not to torment himself, but to train his mind. He understood that by rehearsing adversity, he'd never be caught off guard. In relationships, this practice works the same way. When you've already faced the worst-case scenario in your mind, the real thing loses its bite. That text left unread, you've already felt the disappointment and moved through it. A disagreement, you've pictured walking away with dignity intact. Suddenly, you're no longer desperate to avoid pain. You're free to engage authentically without the weight of neediness. But there's a second layer to this: gratitude. When you mentally walk through losing what you have, a partner's attention, a budding connection, you start to appreciate it more deeply. The Stoics called this premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. It's not about pessimism, it's about clarity. By acknowledging that nothing is permanent, you stop taking things for granted. You show up more present, more attentive, because you've already tasted what it would feel like to lose them. And that changes everything. Here's how to put it into action. Every morning, spend 3 minutes visualizing a challenge you might face. Maybe it's a difficult conversation or the risk of putting yourself out there. Feel the discomfort fully, then fast forward. See yourself handling it with calm, with grace. That's the sweet spot. You're not just bracing for impact, you're rehearsing resilience. And over time, that rehearsal rewires your instincts. What once triggered anxiety now becomes just another moment, one you're prepared to meet with steady hands. This isn't about expecting the worst, it's about knowing that even if the worst comes, you'll handle it, and that certainty, that's the foundation of unshakable confidence. One of the most liberating realizations in Stoicism and in dating comes from a simple distinction Epictetus made 2,000 years ago. Some things are within your power, he said, and some things are not. Your opinions, your impulses, your desires, your actions, those belong to you. But everything else, how people respond, what they think of you, even whether they return your affection, those lie outside your control. The moment you internalize this, something shifts. You stop wasting energy on the uncontrollable and start investing it where it actually matters. Picture this, you're on a date and she seems distant. Maybe she's quiet or her responses are shorter than usual. The old version of you might spiral, scrambling to analyze every word, tweak your behavior, or worse, desperately seek validation to ease the tension. But the Stoic approach flips the script. Instead of fixating on her mood, you ask yourself one question: what's actually in my control right now? You can choose to stay present, to listen deeply, to engage with genuine interest. You can't force her to enjoy the conversation, but you can ensure your own actions reflect confidence and respect. This is the dichotomy of control in action. It's not indifference, it's focus. The Stoics knew that suffering comes from clinging to outcomes we can't dictate, like whether someone texts back or how they perceive us. But when you redirect that energy inward, you reclaim your power. Marcus Aurelius put it bluntly: you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Think about how this applies beyond dating. Ever sent a message and obsessed over the reply, the timing, the tone, whether it's punctuated or not? Here's the truth: once you hit send, it's out of your hands. What's still yours? How you occupy your time instead of refreshing your inbox. Whether you let anxiety hijack your afternoon or redirect that energy into something meaningful. The more you practice this separation, the lighter you feel. There's a secondary benefit too. When you stop trying to micromanage external reactions, people sense it. Neediness evaporates. You're no longer seeking approval, you're engaging from a place of wholeness. And paradoxically, that's what makes you magnetic. Ever noticed how the least desperate person in the room often attracts the most attention? This is why Epictetus trained his students to greet every challenge with the same reminder: is this within my control? If not, it deserves no mental real estate. Try it today. The next time you catch yourself overanalyzing a reaction or sweating an outcome, pause, take a breath. Then invest that energy into what you can actually shape: your next move, your mindset, your growth. That's where true confidence begins. There's a profound shift that happens when you stop resisting life's curveballs and start embracing them, not just tolerating them, but loving them. This is the heart of Amor Fati, a concept borrowed by Nietzsche from the Stoics, and it might just be the ultimate mindset hack for dating and beyond. Imagine viewing every rejection, every awkward moment, every unexpected twist not as a failure, but as the exact thing you needed to grow. That's the magic of loving your fate. Think about the last time you faced rejection. Maybe it stung, maybe it made you question yourself. But what if that rejection wasn't a roadblock, but a redirection? The Stoics believed that obstacles aren't setbacks, they're the way forward. When you internalize Amor Fati, you stop seeing a no as a reflection of your worth and start seeing it as an invitation to refine your approach, to dig deeper into your own resilience. This isn't about toxic positivity. It's about recognizing that every experience, especially the uncomfortable ones, is shaping you into someone more grounded, more authentic, more unshakable. Consider Marcus Aurelius again. He ruled an empire amid wars, plagues, and betrayals, yet he wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That's Amor Fati in practice. When you bring this mindset into dating, something remarkable happens. A cancelled date isn't a disaster, it's an opportunity to reconnect with yourself or meet someone even better. A tough conversation isn't something to dread, it's a chance to practice clarity and compassion. And when you genuinely believe that everything happening is for your ultimate benefit, people sense it. There's no desperation, no bitterness, just a quiet confidence that draws others in. Here's the practical shift. Next time you face a setback, ask yourself, how is this serving me? Maybe that rejection saved you from a mismatched relationship. Maybe that awkward moment taught you to laugh at yourself. The more you train yourself to look for the hidden gift, the less power setbacks have over you. Amor Fati turns life into a classroom where every interaction, good or bad, is a lesson. And when you stop fighting reality and start loving it, you unlock a level of confidence that doesn't need validation because you trust the process, even when it's uncomfortable. This mindset doesn't just change how you handle dating, it changes how you handle life. When you love your fate, you're no longer at the mercy of external events. You're the one writing the story, setbacks and all, and that's the kind of energy that doesn't just attract others, it transforms you. Seneca had a razor-sharp strategy for handling life's unpredictable moments, one that's especially powerful in dating. He called it premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils, but don't let the name fool you. This isn't about dwelling on doom, it's about dissolving anxiety before it ever takes hold. Imagine walking into a first date already prepared for the awkward silence, the accidental spill, or the joke that falls flat. Unlike modern overthinking, which spins endless, what if scenarios without resolution? Seneca's method gives you a game plan. You don't just envision the stumble, you rehearse your recovery. Here's how it works in practice. Before an event, you deliberately picture the most cringe-worthy possibilities. Not to torture yourself, but to disarm them. Let's say you're nervous about running out of things to say. Instead of hoping it won't happen, you confront it head-on. What if there's a long pause? Now script your response. Maybe you smile and say, "Well, that silence got awkward fast. How about we blame it on the coffee?" By pre-writing the moment, you transform panic into poise. The key difference between this and modern overthinking: one leaves you paralyzed, the other leaves you prepared. Modern dating culture often amplifies anxiety by treating discomfort as failure. We obsess over flawless interactions, crafting the perfect text, rehearsing witty banter, only to crumble when reality doesn't match the fantasy. Seneca's approach flips this. He'd argue that the perfect date isn't one without hiccups, it's one where you handle hiccups with ease. Think of it like fire drills. You don't wait for the flames to practice escaping. You train in advance so muscle memory takes over. That's the power of premeditatio malorum. Try this tonight. Take 3 common dating anxieties, maybe the fear of being judged, the dread of silence, or the uncertainty of a goodbye hug. For each, write down the worst-case scenario, then script your calm, composed response. When the moment comes, you won't be scrambling for composure, you'll already have it. And here's the secret bonus: most of those disasters won't even happen, but the confidence you gain from knowing you're ready, that's real. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." By facing your fears on paper first, you shrink them down to size. Suddenly, dating isn't a minefield, it's a series of moments, each one manageable. And that shift changes everything. There's a profound freedom that comes from remembering one unavoidable truth: you won't be here forever. The Stoics called this Memento Mori, Latin for remember you must die. At first glance, it might sound morbid, but dig deeper, and you'll find it's one of the most liberating practices for cutting through social anxiety and approval seeking. When you truly internalize that your time is limited, something shifts. The petty fears that once held you back, what if they don't like me, what if I sound foolish, start to lose their grip. Because if this conversation, this moment, could be your last, why waste it pretending to be someone you're not? Think about the last time you censored yourself to fit in. Maybe you laughed at a joke you didn't find funny or nodded along to an opinion you disagreed with. Now imagine standing at the end of your life, looking back on all those moments you traded authenticity for acceptance. Would you regret the times you played it safe? The Stoics believed that remembering death isn't about fear, it's about urgency. It's a wake-up call to stop postponing your truth. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his journals, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say." That's the power of Memento Mori. When you speak and act as if each interaction might be your final one, you stop filtering yourself through other people's expectations. This practice doesn't just remove the fear of rejection, it replaces it with something far more compelling: clarity. Imagine walking into a date with the mindset, "I might never see this person again." Not as a threat, but as permission. Permission to skip the small talk and ask the questions you genuinely care about. Permission to disagree respectfully instead of people-pleasing. Permission to reveal quirks you'd normally hide. The irony: this unapologetic authenticity often becomes your greatest magnet. People can sense when you're not performing, when you're not measuring your words to win their favor. That's the kind of presence that leaves an imprint. Here's how to put it into action. Each morning, take 30 seconds to reflect on your mortality, not with dread, but with focus. Ask yourself, if today were my last, would I be proud of how I showed up? Then carry that awareness into your interactions. When you feel the urge to shrink or sugarcoat, pause. Remember that life's too short for half-hearted conversations. This isn't about being reckless, it's about being real. The more you practice this, the more natural it becomes. There's a side effect to this mindset too. When you stop fearing disapproval, you start attracting people who resonate with the real you. No more exhausting performances, no more friendships or relationships built on facades. Just the quiet confidence of knowing you've got nothing to prove. After all, as the Stoics would remind us, even the most critical voices will one day fall silent, just like yours. So why let them dictate how you live now? Musonius Rufus, one of the most influential Stoic teachers of ancient Rome, had a radical approach to building resilience. He didn't just endure discomfort, he sought it out voluntarily. Cold showers in winter, fasting for days, sleeping on hard ground, these weren't punishments. They were drills. His philosophy was simple. By willingly stepping into hardship, you inoculate yourself against life's inevitable challenges. And here's where it gets fascinating. This same practice can transform how you navigate the uncertainties of dating and relationships. Think about the last time you hesitated to approach someone because your palms were sweating or your throat tightened. Or the moment you bit your tongue during a disagreement, afraid to rock the boat. What if you could rewire those instincts? That's the power of voluntary discomfort. When you deliberately expose yourself to small, controlled doses of unease, like striking up a conversation with a stranger or sitting with the tension of a delayed reply, you're not just building tolerance. You're proving to yourself that discomfort isn't dangerous. It's just a signal, one you can acknowledge without obeying. Let's break this down with a modern example. Say you're at a social event and someone catches your eye. The old pattern might be waiting for the perfect moment to introduce yourself, which never comes. But the Stoic approach, you lean into the awkwardness. You walk over before you feel ready, because readiness is a myth. Musonius Rufus would argue that the chill of a cold shower and the jolt of social courage tap into the same muscle, the ability to act despite discomfort. Every time you do this, you dilute fear's power. What starts as a clenched jaw and racing heart eventually becomes just another step forward, but there's a deeper layer here. Voluntary discomfort isn't just about brute force exposure. It's about reframing your relationship with ease. Modern dating culture often sells the fantasy of frictionless connections, perfectly curated texts, flawless first dates. But the Stoics knew better. They understood that growth lives in resistance. When you voluntarily embrace the sting of rejection or the silence of an unanswered message, you're not just surviving, you're collecting evidence that you can handle life's rougher edges. Here's how to apply this today. Start small, take the cold shower, skip the elevator, initiate a conversation with no agenda other than practicing courage. Notice how your mind inflates discomfort into catastrophe, and then watch as the catastrophe never arrives. Over time, these micro-drills compound. You'll catch yourself laughing off an awkward moment instead of replaying it for days. You'll hold eye contact a second longer, not because you're fearless, but because you've trained in the fire of voluntary discomfort, and that shift. That's where real confidence is forged, not in the absence of fear, but in the quiet certainty that you can move forward anyway. Musonius Rufus taught that comfort is the enemy of resilience. In dating and in life, the more you chase ease, the smaller your world becomes. But when you willingly step into the fray, you expand your capacity to engage fully, to risk authentically, and to stay steady when things don't go as planned. That's the gift of this practice, not just thicker skin, but a deeper freedom. Marcus Aurelius had a secret weapon against spiraling emotions, one he called the view from above. Picture yourself floating high above the earth, watching the scene unfold from miles away. The argument that felt world-shattering minutes ago, from this vantage point, it's a speck. The text message left unanswered, the jealous knot in your stomach, they shrink to near invisibility. This mental shift isn't about dismissing your feelings, it's about putting them in perspective. And when applied to dating, it's a game changer for emotional resilience. Let's say you're stuck ruminating over a partner's vague reply. Your mind races. Are they losing interest? Did I say something wrong? Now activate the view from above. Zoom out. See yourself in the room, then the building, then the city. Keep pulling back until you're looking at the planet itself, a tiny blue dot in an infinite cosmos. Those unanswered letters on your screen, they're smaller than pixels from here. Suddenly, the urgency fades. The Stoics weren't suggesting you suppress emotions, they were teaching you to contextualize them. What feels like a tidal wave up close is often just a ripple in the grand scheme. This practice also exposes a deeper truth. Most conflicts in relationships aren't about the facts, they're about the stories we attach to them. When jealousy flares because your partner liked someone else's photo, the view from above asks, will this matter in a week, a year, on your deathbed? The answer isn't just calming, it's clarifying. It separates genuine concerns from manufactured drama. Seneca put it bluntly, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. By zooming out, you're not avoiding emotion, you're reclaiming the power to choose which emotions deserve your energy. Here's how to apply it today. Next time you catch yourself overreacting, whether it's to a delayed text or an offhand comment, pause. Close your eyes, mentally rise above the scene until the details blur. Imagine the sun rising and setting over this moment 100 times. Watch how trivial it becomes against the backdrop of time. Then, with that clarity, ask, does this deserve the weight I'm giving it? The answer will often surprise you. The real magic of this technique isn't just in diffusing tension, it's in what it reveals about your priorities. When petty conflicts stop consuming your mental space, you make room for what actually matters: depth, connection, and the kind of presence that can't be shaken by a misplaced punctuation mark. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Look at the stars, how they go on forever, untouched by your worries." That's the gift of the view from above. It reminds you that while emotions are valid, they don't have to be the boss of you. Seneca ended every evening with a simple but profound habit. He'd sit with his journal and ask himself two questions. What did I do well today, and where could I improve? This wasn't self-criticism, it was clarity. Imagine applying this same ritual to your dating life. Instead of replaying conversations in your head with regret or pride, you dissect them with the precision of a Stoic, cool, calm, and curious. No blame, no ego, just raw assessment. That's the power of journaling like a Stoic, turning every interaction, whether smooth or awkward, into fuel for growth. Let's break down how this works. After a date or even a fleeting exchange, grab a notebook and answer 3 prompts. First, what aspects were within my control? Maybe you showed up genuinely engaged, asked thoughtful questions, or kept your nerves in check. Celebrate that, then flip it. What wasn't in my control? Their reactions, their mood, whether they laughed at your jokes. Acknowledge those, then mentally release them. They're not your burden to carry. Finally, the kicker, what's one small adjustment for next time? Not a sweeping critique like "be funnier," but something actionable. Pause before answering to listen more deeply, or share one vulnerable story instead of hiding behind jokes. This practice does 2 revolutionary things. First, it trains you to separate effort from outcome. Most people judge their success by external validation. Did they get the number, the second date, the compliment? Stoic journaling redirects your focus inward. Did you show up as your best self? Did you act with integrity? Those are the only metrics that matter, because they're the only ones you can replicate. Second, it kills perfectionism. When you review your actions without melodrama, you start seeing missteps as data, not disasters. That awkward silence wasn't a failure, it was feedback. But here's where Seneca's method diverges from modern self-help. Most journaling prompts aim to boost confidence through affirmations. Stoicism goes deeper. It builds competence through honest reflection. Take a recent interaction where you felt unsure. Instead of writing, "I'm enough just as I am," which, while true, doesn't help you grow, try, "Where did I hold back and why?" Maybe you censored an opinion to avoid debate, or nodded along instead of asking the question burning in your mind. That's gold. Now you've identified a pattern, and patterns can be broken. The magic lies in consistency. This isn't a one-time exercise, it's a nightly ritual. Over time, you'll spot trends. Perhaps you interrupt when nervous or default to self-deprecation when complimented. Those insights become your personal training manual, and the more you refine your awareness, the less you'll fear messing up. You'll walk into conversations knowing that even if things don't go perfectly, you'll walk away with another lesson. Try this tonight. Spend 5 minutes with these questions. No fluff, no self-pity, just the facts. Then close the journal and let it go. Like Seneca, you're not dwelling on the past, you're preparing for a wiser tomorrow. And that's how journaling becomes more than a habit. It becomes your secret weapon. Cato the Younger was a man who could stand in the middle of a Roman Senate chamber, surrounded by enemies hurling insults, and never flinch. Not a tightened jaw, not a defensive shift in posture, just absolute stillness. That quiet confidence didn't come from arrogance. It came from an unshakable understanding of his own worth. And here's what most people miss. His body language wasn't a performance. It was the physical manifestation of Stoic discipline. Today, we call this power posing, but for Cato, it was simply the outward expression of an inner truth, that no insult, no rejection, no external chaos could dictate his sense of self. Think about the last time someone's words threw you off balance. Maybe your shoulders hunched, your gaze dropped, or your voice got quieter. Those reactions aren't just habits, they're signals to others and to yourself that you've handed over your power. Now imagine replacing that with Cato's stillness, not the rigid posture of someone trying to look confident, but the easy, grounded stance of someone who knows they have nothing to prove. This is where Stoic body language diverges from modern advice. It's not about faking it till you make it. It's about aligning your exterior with the unshakable composure you cultivate internally. Start with the basics, your feet planted firmly, not shifting weight anxiously, your shoulders relaxed but square, as if you're carrying nothing heavier than your own presence. Your hands steady, not fidgeting with pockets or crossing defensively. And then there's the eyes, not a piercing stare meant to intimidate, but a calm, unwavering focus that says, "I'm here fully." The Stoics called this prosach, or attention. When your body reflects a mind trained not to scatter at every disturbance, people feel it. They may not know why, but they'll sense the difference between someone posing and someone rooted in something deeper. Here's the key distinction. Most power poses are about manipulating perception. You strike a superhero stance before a big meeting to trick your brain into feeling bold. But Stoic posture is the opposite. It's not a trick. It's the natural result of a mind that's done the work. When you've practiced negative visualization, when you've embraced Amor Fati, when you've journaled through your insecurities, your body doesn't need to fake confidence. It simply carries the quiet assurance of someone who's faced their fears and found solid ground on the other side. Try this exercise next time you're in a high-pressure social situation. Instead of thinking, "How do I look?" ask, "How do I feel?" If your breath is shallow, deepen it. If your jaw is tight, soften it. These aren't performative tweaks, they're corrections, like a sailor adjusting the sails to the wind. Cato didn't command respect because he acted unshaken. He was unshaken. And when your body language flows from that same place of inner resolve, you won't need to demand respect. It will meet you where you stand. The irony, the less you care about how you're perceived, the more magnetic you become, because true presence isn't manufactured, it's excavated from the bedrock of your own discipline. And that's something no insult, no awkward moment, no passing judgment can take from you. Epictetus once told a story about a broken cup that cut straight to the heart of why we suffer in relationships. Picture this: you're holding your favorite mug, the one that fits perfectly in your hands, when suddenly it slips and shatters on the floor. Your stomach drops. But here's the twist: the pain isn't in the broken pieces, it's in the story you tell yourself about them. That cup was special. I'll never find another like it. This ruins my whole morning. That's the Stoic discipline of assent in action, the split second between an event and your reaction, where freedom lives. Now apply this to dating. Someone ghosts you and your mind races. They didn't respect me. I must have said something wrong. No one ever sticks around. But just like that cup, the real wound isn't the silence, it's the meaning you assign to it. This is where most people get hijacked by emotion. Anger flares, insecurity whispers, and before you know it, you've fired off a text you'll regret or spiraled into self-doubt. But Epictetus offers a radical alternative: press pause, not to suppress the feeling but to interrogate it. When that wave of rejection hits, step back and ask, what am I choosing to believe about this? The Stoics called this hypolepsis, the act of withholding assent from knee-jerk judgments. Because here's the truth: no event, no person's action can force you to feel anything. The power lies in your interpretation. Take modern ghosting as a case study. Two people can experience the same vanishing act and walk away with entirely different stories. One thinks, "This proves I'm unlovable." The other shrugs, "They're lost." Maybe they're dealing with their own chaos. Same event, different agony. That's the broken cup principle at work. Your pain isn't dictated by what happens to you, but by the verdict you deliver in the courtroom of your mind. Marcus Aurelius put it bluntly in his Meditations: you don't have to turn this into something. It doesn't have to upset you. So how do you build this discipline? Start with the gap. When emotion surges, whether it's jealousy, resentment, or abandonment, freeze. Literally count to 3. In that breath, ask, what raw facts do I actually know? Facts they stopped replying. That's it. Everything else, they're ignoring me, they never cared, is fiction you're drafting on the spot. The Stoics weren't asking you to deny pain. They were teaching you to spot the difference between the knife and the hand holding it. Here's where it gets practical. Keep a mental ledger: left column, what happened; right column, what you're adding to it. Over time, you'll catch yourself weaving narratives that don't serve you. Maybe you're assuming malice where there's just human frailty. Maybe you're personalizing behavior that had nothing to do with you. And once you see that machinery at work, you can dismantle it. The magic of this practice isn't just damage control, it's liberation. When you stop handing your peace over to every unanswered text or lukewarm response, you reclaim sovereignty. Emotions still come, but they don't overstay their welcome. You feel the sting, then remember the cup was just clay. The meaning was always yours to choose. Marcus Aurelius faced revolts, betrayals, even the plague. Yet his private journals reveal a man who didn't just endure chaos, he leveraged it. One line echoes through 2,000 years. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. At first glance, it sounds like motivational wordplay. But when you tear it apart, you uncover a psychological alchemy that transforms setbacks into rocket fuel. Think about the last time you hit a wall in dating, maybe a rejection that stung, or a connection that fizzled out. The ordinary response is retreat, the Stoic response. To ask, how can this blockage be the bridge? Take the story of a client I coached who'd been ghosted after what he thought was a perfect first date. For weeks, he replayed every detail, certain he'd blown it. Then he stumbled on Aurelius' quote. Instead of dwelling on the loss, he dissected it. What if this silence isn't a failure but a filter? He realized he'd been molding himself to fit her interests, hiding his love for niche history podcasts and offbeat travel stories. The ghosting wasn't proof he wasn't enough. It was proof he hadn't been fully himself. That became his new rule, no more shape-shifting. 6 months later, he met someone who lit up when he mentioned medieval sword-making techniques. The obstacle of rejection had forced him into authenticity, and that became the very trait that attracted the right person. This is the heart of the Stoic shift. Most people see roadblocks as stop signs. The Stoics see them as signposts. When a date cancels last minute, it's not a void. It's reclaimed time to recharge or reach out to someone new. When a conversation stalls, it's not awkwardness. It's an invitation to practice sitting comfortably in silence. Even jealousy, that gnawing emotion we're taught to suppress, can be repurposed. Instead of spiraling when your partner mentions an ex, use it as a mirror. What insecurity did that trigger? Now you've got a map to your own blind spots. History's full of these pivots. Beethoven was going deaf when he composed his greatest works. Lincoln's string of political defeats sharpened his empathy before the presidency. In dating terms, every no is a nudge toward someone who will say yes to the real you. Aurelius didn't just preach this, he lived it. During his darkest campaigns, he wrote, "The blazing fire makes flames and brightness out of everything thrown into it." That's the mindset, not avoiding resistance but burning it for warmth. Here's how to operationalize this today. Next time you face a setback, a left swipe, a cold response, a mismatch, write down 3 ways this could secretly serve you. Maybe it's revealing a pattern in who you chase. Maybe it's freeing up energy for a passion project that makes you more interesting. Or maybe it's simply thickening your skin for bigger asks ahead. The goal isn't to Pollyanna your pain. It's to recognize that obstacles don't block the path, they shape it. And sometimes the detour winds up being the scenic route you needed all along. Aurelius ruled an empire, but his real power was this, an unshakable belief that nothing could happen to him, only for him. That's the Stoic edge. When you stop seeing life's friction as sabotage and start treating it as strategy, rejection doesn't break you. It builds you, and that's when the magic happens, not despite the obstacles, but because of them. Seneca had a secret weapon against petty insults, one that disarmed his critics while keeping his dignity intact. He didn't lash out or shrink back. Instead, he laughed, not the nervous chuckle of someone scrambling to save face, but the genuine amusement of a man who couldn't be rattled. When a rival politician mocked his ornate writing style as philosophy for the salon, Seneca didn't defend himself, he leaned in. "If my work is too polished for your taste," he replied, "perhaps you'd prefer I carve my words into tree bark." The room erupted, his critic deflated, and just like that, the insult became a showcase for Seneca's unshakable poise. That's Stoic humor in action, turning barbs into opportunities to demonstrate confidence without cruelty. Think about the last time someone took a jab at you, maybe a backhanded compliment about your outfit or a sarcastic remark about your choice in music. The instinct is often to clap back with equal venom or retreat into silence, but Stoicism offers a third path: playful deflection. Picture their words as a tennis ball lobbed your way. You've got two choices. You can swing hard, escalating tension, or you can volley it lightly, adding spin but keeping the game alive. Here's how it works. When a date teases, "Wow, you're really intense about your coffee order," instead of stiffening, you grin. "Guilty, but hey, if I'm this passionate about beans, imagine how I'll be about you." The moment shifts from awkward to electric. This isn't about memorizing clever comebacks. It's about cultivating a mindset where insults lose their power to offend. Seneca trained himself to see mockery as what it really is: a reflection of the other person's insecurities, not your flaws. When you stop taking jabs personally, you free yourself to respond with creativity instead of defensiveness. Take the ancient story of Diogenes, the philosopher who lived in a barrel. When Alexander the Great visited him and asked if he wanted anything, Diogenes didn't grovel or flatter. He simply said, "Yes, step aside, you're blocking my sunlight." The conqueror walked away impressed, later remarking, "If I weren't Alexander, I'd wish to be Diogenes." That's the magic of humor rooted in self-assurance. Let's break this down with modern examples. Say someone throws shade at your hobby. You still played chess. Isn't that for old men in parks? Lean into it. Yep, next week I'm challenging a pigeon. He's got a killer opening move. The trick is to acknowledge the tease without conceding its sting. You're not denying your interests, you're showing they don't need validation. Or imagine a date jokes about your overly detailed playlist. Instead of justifying it, amplify it. "Oh, this is just my shower singing catalog. Wait till you see my spreadsheet of shower temperatures." The subtext: your quirks aren't flaws, they're features. But there's a line here. Stoic humor never punches down. It's not sarcasm meant to wound or passive-aggressive digs. The goal isn't to win the exchange, but to reveal your emotional stability. When you respond to pettiness with grace, or better yet, wit, you demonstrate something far more attractive than quick comebacks: inner security. Try this today. The next time someone tests you with a sly remark, pause, breathe. Then imagine their words as that tennis ball, something light, even absurd. Your job isn't to crush it, but to keep the rally going with a smirk. Because when you can laugh at yourself without self-deprecation and deflect pettiness without malice, you're not just practicing Stoicism, you're embodying its highest ideal: freedom from the need to take life or yourself too seriously. Seneca wrote, "A jest is the test of truth." He understood that humor isn't just a shield against insults, it's a mirror. Show me how someone handles mockery, and I'll show you their character. The quieter truth: show me how someone laughs, and I'll show you their strength. There's a subtle shift that happens when you stop clinging to outcomes, when you start adding an invisible asterisk to every plan. Seneca called this the reserve clause, the simple act of tagging, fate permitting, to your intentions. It sounds like a small linguistic tweak, but beneath the surface, it's a complete rewiring of how you engage with desire. Picture this: you're about to ask someone out and your pulse kicks up just thinking about it. Normally, you'd fixate on the response. Will they say yes? Will they like me? But with the reserve clause, you reframe it. I'll ask her out, fate permitting. Suddenly, the weight lifts. You're no longer handing over your peace to a result you can't control. This isn't about pessimism or hedging your bets. It's about sovereignty. Think of the reserve clause as a mental footnote that keeps you grounded in reality. The Stoics knew that frustration and disappointment don't come from unmet expectations, they come from rigid expectations. When you attach to a specific outcome, they must say yes, this must work out, you're setting yourself up for suffering. But when you add fate permitting, you're acknowledging the truth: life is unpredictable. You're not surrendering agency, you're surrendering illusion. Modern dating is riddled with this tension. You craft the perfect text, rehearse the ideal conversation, and then silence, or worse, a lukewarm response. Without the reserve clause, that silence feels like a judgment. With it, just fate rerouting you. Seneca wrote letters signing off with "if the gods will it," not out of superstition, but to remind himself that even the best-laid plans are collaborations with the universe. Apply this to dating, and you start seeing rejections not as personal failures but as cosmic redirections. Maybe that unanswered message wasn't a snub, it was space for someone better to enter. Here's where it gets practical. Next time you're about to take a romantic risk, asking for a number, planning a future date, even confessing feelings, whisper the reserve clause to yourself. "I'll tell them how I feel, fate permitting." Notice how it changes your energy. There's less desperation in your delivery, less agony in the wait. You're no longer a beggar hoping for a yes, you're a participant in a larger dance. And ironically, that detachment often makes your approach more attractive. People sense when you're not clinging to their response, and that freedom is magnetic. But the reserve clause isn't just for big moments. Use it when swiping, "I'll match with someone great, fate permitting." When planning a trip together, "We'll go to Italy, fate permitting." Each time you're training your brain to hold plans lightly. This doesn't mean you stop pursuing what you want. It means you stop treating life's unpredictability as a personal affront. Seneca endured exile, betrayal, and ultimate execution by Nero. Through it all, he maintained his equanimity because he understood, you can steer the ship, but you don't control the waves. Try this today. Pick one dating-related intention, something that's been weighing on you, and tack on the reserve clause. Watch how it shifts your relationship with uncertainty. Over time, you'll stop seeing no as a stop sign and start seeing it as a detour to something you couldn't yet imagine. Because the secret of the reserve clause isn't just about softening blows, it's about staying open to the possibility that fate might have a better plot twist in store. One of the most underrated tools in the Stoic toolkit isn't about thinking or analyzing, it's about embodying. The ancients called this prosoch, the practice of modeling virtues by asking a single transformative question: what would my best self do here? But here's the twist: Stoics took it further. They didn't just imagine an abstract ideal, they borrowed the nerves of steel from Cato, the patience of Socrates, the grace of Marcus Aurelius mid-battle. Imagine stepping into a tense conversation or a vulnerable moment and channeling not just your own courage, but the collective strength of history's most unshakable minds. That's the power of modeling virtues not as theory but as lived armor. Take Socrates as your first case study. The man stood trial for his life, accused of corrupting Athens' youth, and faced his executioners with the same calm he brought to philosophical debates. When his students begged him to flee, he took the hemlock without flinching. Now fast forward to modern dating. Someone ghosts you or a first date turns hostile. Instead of reacting from ego or hurt, you channel Socrates' patience. What would he do? He'd pause. He'd ask questions instead of making accusations. He'd refuse to let someone else's behavior dictate his dignity. Suddenly, you're not just coping, you're ascending to a higher standard, one modeled by someone who stared down death with a joke. But this isn't about impersonation, it's about selection. The Stoics were ruthless curators of character. When Seneca advised his friend Lucilius on handling slander, he didn't say be brave. He said, remember how Thomas More cracked jokes on the scaffold. Specificity is key. Vague ideals like be confident crumble under pressure, but concrete examples, those stick. Try this before your next social interaction. Pick a Stoic archetype like a suit of armor. Will you wear Marcus' calm in the face of rejection, Epictetus' humor when teased, Zeno's poise when interrupted? The moment you step into their mindset, something shifts. Your posture straightens, your breath slows, because you're no longer just you, you're a lineage of resilience. Here's how to put it into action. First, audit your role models. Most people unconsciously absorb behavior from pop culture or toxic influences. Replace those with Stoic exemplars. Next, preload scenarios. If you're nervous about confrontation, study how Cato remained unmoved by insults. If you're prone to over-explaining, channel Seneca's brevity in letters. Then, the critical step, rehearse. Visualization isn't enough, you need embodiment. Stand like Marcus would, speak at Epictetus' measured pace. The body believes what it practices. There's a neurological secret here, too. When you model behavior, your brain activates mirror neurons, the same circuits that fire when you actually perform an action. In other words, mentally inhabiting Marcus' composure isn't just poetic, it's priming your nervous system for calm. Modern psychology calls this self-distancing, stepping outside your reactive self to access a wiser perspective. The Stoics just did it with better role models, and here's the kicker: over time, this stops being an act. The more you model virtues, the more they become default settings. You'll catch yourself mid-frustration thinking, this isn't how Seneca would hold a grudge, and the tension evaporates. That's the alchemy. By borrowing the best of history's minds, you're not mimicking, you're remaking yourself in their image. And the best part, you get to choose whose legacy lives through you. So tonight, try this. Pick one Stoic, read their words until their voice drowns out your insecurities. Then step into their shadow, not as a costume, but as a compass, because the goal isn't to become them. It's to discover what you're capable of when guided by 2,000 years of proven strength. Epictetus had a radical way of reframing life's setbacks. He called them the universe's curriculum. Every obstacle, every rejection, every moment of friction wasn't random cruelty, it was a tailored lesson. Imagine standing in front of someone you're drawn to, feeling that familiar ache when they don't reciprocate. The default narrative, I'm not enough, but Epictetus would flip the script. This isn't rejection, it's resistance training. That shift isn't just wordplay, it's psychological judo. When you stop seeing disinterest as a verdict and start treating it as a drill, you transform pain into progress. Think of it like this: a boxer doesn't dread sparring sessions because they hurt, they value them. Each blow teaches them to pivot, to guard, to endure. Dating operates the same way. That person who ghosts you, they're not a villain, they're a sparring partner. The awkward silence that makes your palms sweat. It's not failure, it's a chance to practice staying present under pressure. The Stoics believed the universe was a kind of gymnasium, and every interaction was equipment designed to strengthen a specific muscle: patience, courage, detachment. When you embrace this mindset, rejection stops being something you avoid and becomes something you mine for growth. There's a modern parallel in elite athletes. NBA players review game footage not to wallow in missed shots, but to isolate micro moments where technique faltered. They don't scream at the tape, "Why did I miss?" They ask, "What does this reveal about my release?" Apply that precision to dating. Instead of brooding over a faded connection, dissect it like game tape. Did I listen as much as I talk? Did I hide behind humor instead of vulnerability? Framing it as feedback, not failure, turns a bruise into a blueprint. But here's where Stoicism goes deeper. It's not just about learning from challenges, it's about thanking them. Epictetus taught his students to greet each obstacle with gratitude, like a warrior thanking a rival for revealing a weak spot in their armor. Picture someone canceling a date last minute. The immature response is resentment. The Stoic response, "Thank you for teaching me to enjoy my own company." Or someone flaking on plans, "Thank you for reminding me that my peace isn't negotiable." This isn't delusional positivity, it's strategic reframing. By treating life's friction as a personalized training program, you stop seeing yourself as a victim of chaos and start seeing yourself as a student of mastery. The practical takeaway: keep a training log. After any tough interaction, a cold response, a mismatched expectation, jot down 2 things: the skill-tested patience, assertiveness, humor, and the lesson revealed. Maybe you rush to fill silence or defer too quickly to others' moods. Over time, patterns emerge. You'll spot which muscles need more reps, and the next time you face a similar test, you'll recognize it for what it is, not a threat, but another round in your ongoing spar with destiny. Epictetus didn't just preach this, he lived it. Born a slave, crippled by a brutal master, he still called his suffering the price of admission to wisdom. That's the ultimate refrain. When you view every no, every silence, every disappointment as tuition paid toward your growth, you stop dreading the journey and start respecting the grind. And that's when the real training begins. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, had a blunt piece of advice for anyone seeking wisdom. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we can listen twice as much as we speak. Cut through the polished phrasing, and you'll find a radical challenge to modern conversation, especially in dating. Think about the last time you sat across from someone, nodding while mentally drafting your next response. Or worse, jumping in before they finished because you couldn't wait to impress them with your story. That's not connection, it's performance. Stoic listening flips the script. It's not about waiting for your turn to talk. It's about surrendering the spotlight so completely that the other person feels truly heard. And here's the paradox: the less you try to dazzle, the more magnetic you become. Active listening isn't just a social skill, it's a discipline. The Stoics treated it like weightlifting for attention. Picture this: you're on a date and she's sharing a story about her chaotic family reunion. Instead of scanning for a segue to your own anecdotes, you anchor yourself in her words. You notice the way her voice dips when she mentions her sister, or the flicker of amusement at her cousin's antics. Then you reflect it back. Sounds like your sister's the calm in the storm, but your cousin's the one who keeps things interesting. That's paraphrasing with purpose. It's not parroting, it's proving you're not just present, you're absorbing. The contrast with modern dating couldn't be starker. Most conversations are dueling monologues, 2 people trading rehearsed highlights, barely scratching the surface. Stoic listening cuts through the noise. It's the difference between "I've been to Italy too" and "you said the light in Rome felt different." What did that awaken in you? One shifts focus back to you, the other invites her to unfold. Epictetus framed listening as an act of humility. Nature gave us 1 tongue but 2 ears, so we might hear more and speak less. When you embody that ratio, you're not just following etiquette, you're demonstrating a rare quality: the ability to prioritize understanding over being understood. Here's how to train this muscle. First, the 3-second rule. After someone finishes speaking, count silently to 3 before responding. Those seconds feel like eternity, but they're a buffer against impulsive replies, and they signal deliberation, not disinterest. Next, the echo drill. In low-stakes conversations, practice summarizing the other person's point before adding yours. So your saying isn't just a technique, it's a reality check. Half the time, you'll realize you misheard or missed nuance. Finally, question stacking. For every personal story you share, ask 2 questions about theirs. This isn't a formula, it's a reminder that curiosity outshines charisma every time. The payoff: profound calibration. When you listen like a Stoic, you start detecting what's not said: the hesitation before she mentions her job, the deflection when hobbies come up. These aren't cues to interrogate, they're invitations to deepen the conversation when she's ready. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "I was made to work together with others like hands, feet, or eyelids." Stoic listening embodies that truth. It's recognizing that the best connections aren't built on mutual monologues, but on the silent agreement that for this moment, someone else's words matter more than your own. And in a world of constant broadcasting, that's the kind of presence that doesn't just attract, it lingers. Seneca had a ruthless filter for what deserved his attention, and gossip, petty speculation, and frivolous drama never made the cut. He wrote, "No man can be happy if he torments himself over things beyond his power, and few things are more beyond our power than the small talk of others." Now fast forward to modern dating, where so much mental energy gets wasted on decoding emojis. dissecting response times, or agonizing over why someone's Instagram story included a song lyric that might be about you. The Stoic stance, indifference, not the cold shoulder of apathy, but the deliberate choice to reserve your focus for what truly shapes your character and connections. There's a quiet power in refusing to entertain trivia. Think about the last time you spiraled over a delayed text. You crafted narratives. They're losing interest, they're playing games, when in reality, they might have been stuck in traffic or just busy. Seneca would have called this mental theater exactly what it is, a distraction from your own sovereignty. When you train yourself to meet ambiguity with calm instead of conjecture, you accomplish two things. First, you stop handing over your peace to unknowns. Second, you subtly communicate that your self-worth isn't negotiable based on someone else's typing speed. That's the maturity people notice, not because you're pretending not to care, but because you've genuinely elevated your attention to things that matter. Consider the contrast between two responses to the same scenario. One person spends hours analyzing why a date hasn't replied, rereading their last conversation for clues, and venting to friends about mixed signals. The other acknowledges the silence and pivots to meaningful action, maybe finishing a chapter of the book they've neglected or reaching out to a friend they've been meaning to reconnect with. Both people might feel the initial sting of uncertainty, but the second channels that energy where it can actually move the needle in their life. That's Stoic indifference in practice, not numbing your emotions, but refusing to let them hijack your focus for low-stakes noise. This isn't just about text messages, it's about recognizing the cultural addiction to drama, the impulse to dissect every look, tone, or vague post. Seneca warned his friend Lucilius about this, urging him to avoid the barking of gossip that leaves no time for introspection. Modern dating thrives on this chatter, endless speculation about who liked whose photo or why someone unfollowed you. But every minute spent mentally gnawing on these crumbs is a minute stolen from deeper reflection. Am I becoming the kind of person I admire? Are my actions aligned with my values? Here's how to cultivate this indifference. Start with the trivia audit. At the end of each day, jot down the minor anxieties that consumed mental real estate. Next, categorize them. Was this within my control? Did overthinking it change the outcome? You'll quickly spot patterns. Maybe you fixate on perceived slights when you're tired or default to drama when bored. Awareness is the first step to rewiring the habit. Then, install mental barriers. When you catch yourself slipping into speculation about someone's vague tweet or delayed reply, literally shake your head yes physically and pivot to a pre-selected focus replacement, a Stoic passage, a creative project, even a chore that grounds you in the tangible world. The irony, the less you engage with trivia, the more space you create for substance. People sense when someone isn't easily rattled by small stuff. It's the difference between the person who leans in when others are gossiping and the one who subtly changes the subject to ideas or experiences. That's the magnetism of maturity. Seneca didn't ignore gossip because he was aloof. He ignored it because his mind was too occupied with philosophy, leadership, and legacy. When you follow that lead, you're not just avoiding pettiness, you're building a life so rich in meaning that distractions lose their allure. And that's the kind of presence that doesn't just attract others, it inspires them. Marcus Aurelius had a habit of stepping outside himself literally. In his private journals, he'd switch perspectives mid-sentence, addressing himself as if giving counsel to a troubled friend. "Why are you worrying about this?" he'd write. "You wouldn't panic if this happened to someone else." This wasn't just poetic framing, it was a psychological hack. By temporarily divorcing himself from his emotions, he gained something invaluable: clarity. And when applied to dating, this third-person trick becomes a secret weapon against overreaction. Think about the last time a romantic setback left you spiraling. Maybe they cancelled plans last minute, or you saw them flirting with someone else. Your inner monologue likely amplified the sting. "They're disrespecting me. I'm not good enough." Now hit pause, shift the lens. Picture your best friend describing this exact scenario to you. Would you tell them to grovel or obsess? Or would you offer calm, rational perspective? Maybe they're busy. Maybe it's not about you at all. That's the power of the third-person trick. It forces emotional distance, revealing how often we ration empathy to others but deny it to ourselves. The science behind this is fascinating. Research shows that referring to yourself in the third person, what psychologists call ilesum, reduces activity in the amygdala, the brain's panic button. It's like putting on emotional noise-canceling headphones. Marcus didn't have fMRI scans, but he knew this instinctively. When his political rivals plotted against him, he didn't brood in first-person outrage. Why are they doing this to me? He advised himself as a detached observer. Marcus, expect this. It's the cost of leadership. That slight linguistic shift transformed turmoil into training. Here's how to apply it today. Next time dating stress hits, a left-on-read message, a rejection, a jealous flare-up, script it like a letter to a friend. Dear your name, here's what's really happening. You'll notice two things immediately. First, the problem often shrinks. What felt like a crisis in your head sounds manageable on paper. Second, solutions emerge. You'd never tell a friend to sulk for weeks over a mismatched date, so why permit it for yourself? This practice isn't about suppressing emotion. It's about processing it with the same compassion you'd offer someone you love. There's a bonus effect too. Over time, this habit rewires your default responses. You'll catch yourself mid-spiral thinking, wait, would I judge a friend for sending 2 texts in a row? The answer strips away the shame, leaving only rational next steps. Marcus called this seeing the world as it is, not as you fear it to be. And in dating where fears distort reality more than any other arena, that clarity is priceless. So tonight, try this. Pick one recent dating frustration and write about it in third person. Not as I was hurt when, but as your name felt hurt when. Then respond as the wisest version of yourself. Notice how the weight lifts, because when you stop being the protagonist of your own drama and start being your own advisor, you gain something rare, the ability to navigate romance with a steady hand and a quiet mind. Musonius Rufus, the Stoic teacher who endured exile and poverty, had a peculiar morning ritual. Before even tasting his meager breakfast of bread and water, he'd pause not to lament its simplicity but to savor it. He'd notice the warmth of the loaf in his hands, the way the crust crackled under his fingers, the faint sweetness of grain. In that moment, scarcity became abundance. This wasn't just mindfulness, it was defiance. By finding joy in lack, he proved that hardship couldn't dictate his happiness. And here's where it gets transformative. This same practice can rewire how you experience dating's ups and downs. Imagine ending a date that went nowhere, sitting alone with your coffee. The default script might be self-criticism or frustration. But what if, like Musonius with his bread, you consciously noted 3 small gifts from the experience? Maybe it's the way sunlight caught her laugh lines when she talked about her work, or the unexpected depth in a conversation about childhood pets. Gratitude here isn't about pretending disappointment doesn't exist. It's about refusing to let disappointment monopolize your attention. The Stoics called this Eucharistia, not just saying thanks, but actively mining every situation for its hidden gold. There's neuroscience behind this. When you practice gratitude, your brain releases dopamine and serotonin, and the same chemicals that flood your system during romantic infatuation. But here's the key difference. Instead of depending on someone else's actions to trigger that high, you become the source. Musonius understood this instinctively. By savoring his humble meal, he wasn't just enduring hardship, he was chemically reinforcing his ability to find joy anywhere. Apply this to dating, and suddenly, a cancelled date isn't just a void, it's an opportunity to relish the uninterrupted evening, the chance to revisit a favorite book, or the simple pleasure of walking home under streetlights. But Stoic gratitude goes deeper than silver linings. It's about thanking people not for what they gave you, but for what they taught you. Consider sending a message after a failed connection. "Hey, I appreciated how you challenged my views on travel. It's given me a lot to reflect on." No bitterness, no hidden agenda, just acknowledgement that even mismatches leave you wiser. This does something radical. It severs the link between gratitude and transactional outcomes. You're not saying thank you because things worked out. You're saying it because every interaction leaves fingerprints on your growth. Modern dating culture often treats connections like vending machines. Insert kindness, receive affection. When the treat doesn't drop, we shake the machine. Musonius would have scoffed at this. His gratitude wasn't conditional on results. It was a baseline stance toward existence itself. Try this reframe. Each date, each conversation, each swipe is like a single bite of that coarse Roman bread. Some bites are bland, some surprisingly rich, but each one nourishes in ways you might not taste until later. Here's how to cultivate this daily. Keep a Stoic gratitude log with 2 columns, what happened and what it taught me. Under a disappointing first date, you might write, "She cancelled last-minute right arrow, remembered how much I enjoy spontaneous solo dinners at the bar counter." Or after a heartfelt talk that went nowhere, "We bonded over grief, right arrow, realized I'm ready to share harder stories." Over time, you'll train your brain to spot lessons before lamentations. The ultimate test, thanking rejection itself, not with fake cheer, but with the quiet recognition that every no peels away a layer of neediness, leaving you more grounded in your own worth. Musonius ate bread like a feast, not because he lacked taste, but because he knew a secret: the less you demand from circumstances, the more they give you. And that's the kind of lightness that doesn't just change how you date, it changes how you live. Seneca had a brutal yet liberating philosophy about security. He believed it didn't come from hoping for the best, but from expecting the worst. At first glance, that sounds bleak, but dig deeper and you'll find a psychological fortress. He called it premeditatio malorum, premeditating adversity, and when applied to dating, it becomes an antidote to neediness, a shield against manipulation, and a surprising source of confidence. Picture this: you're in a relationship where you sense subtle power plays hot and cold behavior, guilt trips, or the silent treatment. Most people react by scrambling to appease, fearing the other person's withdrawal. But when you've already mentally rehearsed the worst-case scenario, if she leaves, I'll grow stronger, something shifts. You stop fearing loss, and that changes everything. Let's break down why this works. The human brain hates uncertainty. When we're unsure if someone cares, if they'll stay, or if we're enough, our amygdala sounds the alarm. But Seneca's method flips the script. By fully accepting, even visualizing the worst outcome, you're not being pessimistic, you're vaccinating yourself against panic. Think of it like exposure therapy. If you've already sat with the imagined pain of a breakup, the real thing loses its fangs. This isn't about manifesting disaster, it's about neutralizing its power over you. Take modern dating's most common anxiety, ghosting. Without the worst-case sanctuary, you might spiral when someone stops replying, "Did I say something wrong?" Are they with someone else? But with Seneca's lens, you've already scripted the ending. If they vanish, I'll reinvest in my passions, reconnect with friends, and meet someone who matches my effort. Suddenly, their silence isn't a threat, it's a test of your resolve. And here's the twist. When you embody this unshakable certainty, manipulative tactics lose their grip. Hot and cold behavior only works on those terrified of the cold. But there's a crucial nuance here. This isn't about detachment or emotional suppression. It's about preparedness. Seneca still loved deeply, still engaged fully, but he did so with open eyes. He wrote, "What fortune has made yours is not your own." Apply that to relationships. Cherish the person, but hold the connection lightly. This balanced stance is what makes the worst-case sanctuary so potent. You're not bracing for impact, you're building an inner citadel so secure that no external event can storm it. Try this exercise tonight. Write down your deepest dating fear. Maybe it's rejection, abandonment, or investing years only to be left. Then flesh out the worst-case scenario in vivid detail. Feel it, sit with it. Finally, script your comeback. If this happens, I'll fill in the blanks with concrete actions: travel, therapy, creative projects, community. The goal isn't to dwell on pain, but to prove to yourself that you have a life beyond it. The magic lies in repetition. The more you revisit this mental sanctuary, the more natural it becomes. Soon you'll notice a quiet shift. Where you once scrambled for reassurance, you'll now respond with calm. Where you once tolerated disrespect, you'll now assert boundaries, not from anger, but from the unshakable knowledge that you'll be okay either way. Seneca didn't just preach this, he lived it. Exiled to Corsica, stripped of wealth and status, he wrote, "A man thus grounded must, whether he wills or not, necessarily be attended by constant cheerfulness." That's the ultimate payoff. When you've made peace with the worst, every moment of connection becomes a gift, not a lifeline. Epictetus had a razor-sharp method for slicing through emotional chaos, a mental checklist so simple yet profound it could diffuse panic in seconds. Picture this: you're staring at your phone, stomach churning after sending a risky text. The old you would spiral: did I come on too strong? Will they think I'm desperate? But the Stoic version of you flips open an invisible notebook and asks point blank, is there reaction in my control? That's the first gatekeeper in Epictetus' distress checklist, a tool designed to triage emotions before they hijack your judgment. This isn't about suppressing feelings, it's about sorting them. Think of it like an emergency room for your psyche. When anxiety barges in, you don't let it bleed all over your decisions, you assess its legitimacy. Step 1. Identify the trigger. Maybe it's their delayed reply or an offhand comment that stung. Step 2. Categorize it. Is this event within your sphere of control? Their response: no. Your interpretation and next move: absolutely. Step 3. Prescribe action. If it's uncontrollable, release it. If it's within your power, choose a response aligned with your values, not your fears. Let's make this tangible. Say a date cancels last minute with a vague excuse. The untrained mind jumps to stories: they're not interested, I messed up, I'll never meet someone. But the distress checklist interrupts that script. Can I force them to show up? No. Can I handle this with grace? Yes. What's the virtuous response? No worries, thanks for letting me know. Let's regroup when you're free. No groveling, no guilt trips, just a calm acknowledgement of reality. Here's where modern psychology catches up to ancient wisdom. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, uses nearly identical techniques to halt negative thought loops. The Stoics were just 2,000 years ahead with a system so streamlined it fits in your pocket. Try this exercise next time anxiety strikes. Physically snap your fingers and say, "Checklist," out loud. The sensory interruption breaks the spiral, creating space to apply the steps. Over time, this becomes second nature. You'll catch yourself mid-worry, mentally flipping to the next question like turning pages in a manual. But the real power lies in what happens when you consistently apply this filter. You start spotting patterns, like how often you agonize over things that were never yours to govern. That coworker who flirted with your crush, not your domain. The way your ex tells the breakup story, beyond your jurisdiction. Each time you run an emotion through this sieve, you reinforce a liberating truth: most suffering is optional. Epictetus framed it starkly: some things are up to us and some are not. The checklist is your compass in that divide. When jealousy flares because they're texting someone else, the questions guide you home. Can I dictate their attention? No. Can I cultivate my own magnetism? Always. The moment you internalize this, neediness evaporates. You stop policing their behavior and start refining your own. For the skeptics thinking it can't be that simple, consider this. Emergency responders don't improvise in crises. They drill protocols until reactions become reflexive. Your emotional world deserves the same discipline. The checklist isn't a magic wand, it's a scalpel. and with each precise incision, you remove another tumor of unnecessary anguish. So tonight, do this. Write the 3 questions on your phone's lock screen. 1. What's triggering me? 2. Is it mine to control? 3. What's the wise response? Then the next time dating chaos strikes, treat it like a storm you've trained for. Not with panic, but with the quiet confidence of someone who knows exactly where to look for shelter. Cato the Younger had a drill so brutal, even his fellow Stoics winced at it. He'd intentionally walk through Rome's roughest neighborhoods dressed in a bright, ridiculous cloak, inviting jeers and mockery. The goal wasn't to prove his toughness, but to dissolve something far more insidious: ego. Most of us spend our lives building walls against criticism, polishing our self-image until it's bulletproof. But Cato knew the truth: the thicker those walls, the heavier they become. His cloak was a crowbar prying them open, not to let shame in, but to let pride out. This is the essence of the ego death drill, and it's shockingly relevant today, especially in dating, where so much of our anxiety stems from the terror of being seen as lacking. Imagine someone telling you point blank, "You're boring." The gut reaction: defensiveness. "No, I'm not. Let me list my accomplishments." Or worse, silent resentment that lingers for days. But Cato's approach flips the script. Instead of resisting the insult, you lean into it with clinical curiosity. Interesting, what specifically felt boring? Was it my stories, my questions, my energy? Suddenly, the barb transforms into data, not judgment. The magic here lies in detachment. Most of us conflate criticism with identity, as if someone calling you boring rewrites your DNA. But Cato's drill separates the two. By willingly exposing himself to ridicule, he proved that insults only stick if you treat them like glue. Try this modern adaptation. Ask a close friend to role-play harsh feedback. Your humor feels forced. You dominate conversations. You're too intense. Notice the physical reaction, the heat in your cheeks, the urge to explain or justify. Then practice responding with one sentence: "Tell me more." That's the pivot from ego to evolution. History offers a masterclass in this. When the Roman Senate sneered at Cato for his outdated morals, he didn't rebut. He leaned in, wearing his principles like armor. "If I'm outdated," he'd say, "then let me be a relic." That unshakable calm didn't come from indifference. It came from knowing his worth wasn't up for public auction. Apply this to modern dating. When someone ghosts you with "you're just not exciting enough," the Cato response isn't "watch this." It's define exciting. Maybe you'll discover they wanted adrenaline-fueled escapades while you thrive in quiet depth. That's not rejection, it's clarity. But here's the critical distinction. This isn't about accepting every critique as truth. It's about sifting for gold in the rubble. Epictetus advised his students to treat insults like letters addressed to someone else. Only open them if they're worth reading. Picture someone lobbing your bad in bed. The fragile ego spirals. The Stoic ego asks, is this feedback or flotsam? If they offer specifics, you rush intimacy. That's actionable. If it's vague venom, let it pass like a bad odor. The power lies in discernment, not defiance. Practical steps: start small. Next time someone mocks your taste in music or dismisses your passion, resist the knee-jerk defense. Instead, mirror Cato's cloak, wear their words lightly. Noted. What else? Over time, you'll notice something radical. The less you resist judgment, the less power it holds. And when you finally internalize that your worth isn't decided by committee, you'll walk into every interaction with a new kind of confidence, one that doesn't crumble at the first hint of disapproval, because it was never built on applause to begin with. Cato's cloak was more than fabric. It was a flag planted in the mind, a reminder that the only opinion that can truly shake you is the one you've already whispered to yourself. And when you stop fearing what others might say, you're left with something far more magnetic: the quiet assurance of someone who's already faced the worst and found themselves still standing. Pythagoras demanded absolute silence from his students for 5 straight years before allowing them to speak in his presence. At first glance, this seems extreme until you realize the hidden curriculum beneath the quiet. He wasn't training mutes, he was forging minds capable of measured, intentional speech. In a world where words tumble out reflexively, where dating apps reward rapid-fire banter and social media elevates knee-jerk reactions, this ancient discipline becomes radical. Stoic silence isn't about withholding, it's about mastering the space between thought and expression until every utterance carries weight. Consider the last time you rushed to fill a lull in conversation, tossing out a half-formed joke or unnecessary detail just to avoid dead air. Now imagine the alternative, letting that pause stretch unbothered. There's power in that restraint. When you resist the urge to over-explain or qualify, unless you think that's weird, you project a quiet assurance that can't be faked. The Stoics called this eustochia, the precision of well-aimed speech. In dating, it manifests as the difference between nervous chatter and magnetic presence. Someone who speaks sparingly but thoughtfully doesn't just command attention. They reveal a mind that doesn't need constant validation to feel grounded. Modern communication glorifies speed, instant replies, rapid-fire banter, reactions measured in milliseconds. But Pythagoras understood what neuroscience now confirms. The brain processes subtext and nuance far slower than words. When you pause 3 full seconds before responding to a vulnerable admission or a loaded question, something shifts. The other person leans in. They sense you're not just waiting for your turn to talk, but truly absorbing their words. Picture a date asking, "Why did your last relationship end?" The average person rushes into a rehearsed answer or deflects with humor, the Stoic practitioner. They breathe, they consider, then they might offer a single sentence, "We wanted different things, and I've learned to respect that." No blame, no oversharing, just truth distilled to its essence. This practice becomes even more potent with digital communication. The ping of a notification triggers a dopamine surge that compels immediate response, but Stoic silence rewires that impulse. Try this experiment. Next time you receive a flirtatious or provocative text, set a timer for 9 minutes. Use that time to ask, does this need a reply? If so, what serves the conversation rather than my ego? You'll notice how often our messages are less about connection and more about securing reassurance. Pythagoras' vow wasn't just about withholding speech, it was about eliminating noise so substance could emerge. There's a secondary benefit to this discipline. It exposes others' patterns. When you stop filling every silence, you create space for people to reveal themselves. The date who grows uncomfortable with quiet and defaults to monologues. Data, the one who mirrors your thoughtful pace, also data. Seneca wrote, "Speech is the mirror of the soul. As a man speaks, so he is." By mastering silence, you become fluent in reading what words alone can't convey. Practical steps start with the 3-breath rule. Before responding to anything emotionally charged, a flirtatious tease, a personal question, take 3 deliberate breaths. Not shallow sips of air, but diaphragm-filling inhales that ground you in your body. Notice how often the need to speak dissipates. Next, practice single-sentence responses for a day. Distill every answer to its core. Instead of, "Oh my God, I love that band too." Their early work was so raw compared to the new album, which I still like but try. That album changed how I hear music. The restraint forces clarity, the ultimate test, a whole evening where you speak only when necessary, not as a vow of muteness, but as an exercise in economy. You'll discover how much of our speech is filler, nervous laughter, rehearsed anecdotes, performative agreement. Pythagoras' students emerged from silence not as empty vessels, but as people whose words carried gravity. In dating and in life, that's the kind of presence that doesn't just attract attention, it commands respect, because when you've mastered silence, people lean in to catch every word. And that's when you know your voice isn't just being heard, it's being listened to. Marcus Aurelius often pictured the universe as a grand stage. each person playing their role before gracefully exiting. He wrote in his private journals, "Life is a play, the drama is good for as long as the director wants it to run." There's profound liberation in this metaphor, especially when applied to dating. Imagine walking into a first date not as an audition where you're desperate to land the part, but as a curious actor stepping into a scene, ready to see how the lines unfold. The moment you shift from "I need them to like me" to "I wonder what this character will bring to the story," the pressure evaporates. This isn't about detachment or treating people as props. It's about perspective. Think of the last time you rehearsed a conversation in your head, scripting every possible response. How much energy did you waste on hypotheticals that never materialized? The cosmic play mindset cuts through that. If life's a theater, then every awkward silence, every unexpected twist. The date who shows up with green hair, the one who cries into their wine about their ex, becomes less of a crisis and more of an intriguing plot development. You're no longer the anxious lead actor, you're both performer and audience, observing the scene with amused curiosity. Marcus didn't just use this metaphor to cope with mundane irritations. He applied it to imperial betrayals, wars, even the death of his children. If he could frame those tragedies as acts in a larger drama, surely we can handle a mediocre date or a ghosting with the same lightness. Here's the key distinction. This isn't nihilism. The cosmic play mindset doesn't whisper "none of this matters." It murmurs "all of this is part of the story." That subtle shift transforms rejection from a personal failure into a narrative turn. Maybe that vanished connection wasn't your finale, just a minor character exiting stage left to make room for the next act. Practical application: before your next date, take 2 minutes to mentally set the stage. Literally picture yourself walking onto a set. Notice the lighting, the props, the way your footsteps echo. Then remind yourself, "I'm here to explore this scene, not control it." You'll find your body language relaxes, your laughter becomes more genuine, because when you're not clinging to a specific outcome, you're free to be present. And presence, more than any rehearsed charm, is what makes a performance unforgettable. There's a bonus to this mindset: it reveals red flags faster. When you stop being invested in making it work, you start noticing when the other person's script feels forced or toxic. A manipulative line that might have once triggered guilt now registers as bad dialogue. You're no longer auditioning for their approval, you're assessing whether this is a play you even want to be in. The cosmic play isn't just a metaphor, it's an antidote to modern dating's hyper-seriousness. Marcus knew that the emperor's robes were just a costume. The Stoics understood that all roles, lover, leader, even loser, are temporary. So play your part fully, but hold it lightly. After all, the best actors are the ones who remember their acting. And when you do, something magical happens. You stop performing and start living. And that's when the real drama begins. Seneca once wrote a letter to his friend Lucilius with a simple but devastating truth: we suffer because we mistake possession for enjoyment. That single sentence slices to the core of modern dating's greatest paradox. The harder we clutch at connection, the faster it slips through our fingers. Picture 2 men on the same date. One is mentally rehearsing how to secure a second meeting, analyzing every word for clues she likes him, already imagining their future together. The other, fully immersed in the way her eyes crinkle when she laughs at his joke, savoring the warmth of shared silence between stories. Both experience attraction, but only one is free. The difference isn't intensity of feeling, it's the weight of expectation. This is what Stoics mean by detachment, not indifference but disentanglement from outcomes. Needy attachment whispers, "This must lead to something." Stoic appreciation answers, "This already is something." The first stance turns every interaction into a transaction. The second transforms moments into gifts. Take texting dynamics as an example. The attached mind obsesses over response times, reading meaning into minutes. She took an hour to reply. Is she losing interest? The detached mind, it sends the message and lets go, grateful for the connection when it comes but unshaken when it doesn't. Seneca put it bluntly, you cry that you've lost her. If you can love, you've never lost anything worth keeping. But here's where most interpretations go astray. Detachment isn't about suppressing desire, it's about refining it. Imagine holding an ice cube, clench your fist and it melts through your fingers. Cup your hand lightly and it rests there, cool and intact. That's the Stoic art of enjoying without clinging. You can adore someone's humor, cherish their insights, even ache with longing, all while keeping your palms open. Marcus Aurelius practiced this with his own children, writing, "Love them freely as if they were already lost to you." Not to dampen affection, but to deepen it. When you love without demands, you're not loving less, you're loving more purely. Consider the contrast in breakup responses. The attached person spirals, "I'll never find this again, I wasn't enough." The detached person reflects, "What did this reveal about my capacity to love? What scars did it heal?" Both feel the grief, but one is mired in lack while the other mines for gold. This isn't theoretical, it's physiological. Attachment triggers cortisol spikes, that gnawing anxiety that hijacks rational thought. Detachment, practiced over time, cultivates oxytocin without the crash, the warmth of connection without the withdrawal of dependency. Practical integration starts with micro moments. Next time you're with someone you're drawn to, practice the pause and savor technique. When laughter bubbles up or conversation flows effortlessly, freeze the frame mentally. Whisper to yourself, "This is enough," not as resignation but as revelation. The more you train your brain to register these bursts of joy as complete in themselves, the less you'll demand they become something else. Seneca's version of detachment wasn't cold, it was fiercely alive. He wrote of friendships, "Let us greedily enjoy our friends, because we do not know how long this privilege will be ours." That's the alchemy. When you stop treating people as milestones on your journey and start honoring them as destinations in themselves, you don't lose intensity, you gain integrity. The final Stoic challenge isn't to feel less, it's to need less so you can love more, and that's where true freedom begins. Think of these 25 Stoic practices not as isolated techniques, but as interlocking plates of mental armor. Each one forged in the fires of ancient wisdom, designed to protect and empower you in the unpredictable battlefield of modern dating. From negative visualization that dulls the sting of rejection before it lands, to the cosmic play mindset that turns awkward moments into intriguing plot twists, this is about more than self-improvement. It's a complete rewiring of how you engage with attraction, vulnerability, and emotional resilience. Every time you channel Cotto's indifference to insults or Seneca's detached appreciation, you're not just navigating relationships, you're mastering the art of coming home to yourself, no matter how chaotic the world around you becomes. But here's the truth about armor. It's useless if it stays on the rack, so let's make this practical. For the next 7 days, I challenge you to test drive just 3 of these practices. Not 25, not even 10-3. Maybe it's morning journaling like Marcus Aurelius, asking "What did I control today?" before your fingers even touch your phone. Or perhaps it's the reserve clause, whispering fate permitting before you hit send on that risky text. Watch what happens when you greet rejection with Epictetus training mindset, not as a verdict but as a drill to strengthen your resolve. The goal isn't perfection, it's noticing the subtle shift when fear stops being a wall and becomes a doorway. And here's where I'd love to hear from you. In the comments, share your Stoic dating stories, the moment humor disarmed tension, the time negative visualization kept you steady when plans crumbled, the unexpected freedom you found in releasing outcomes. Because this isn't just about surviving modern romance, it's about reclaiming the unshakable core that makes you magnetic. The Stoics didn't write their wisdom for scrolls, they lived it in the streets, the Senate chambers, the messy reality of being human. Now it's your turn, armor up the world, and your love life won't know what hit it.